Today, in this video, WE will be talking about transfers and PSR. At first, we WLLB, talking about football transfer structure, basically an in-depth discussion on how this process works. What are important factors affecting it? We have all seen those tweets from Fabrizio Ornstein. Let's break down how a football transfer deal actually works. At the center, we have the transfer deal, and around it are all the moving parts that make it happen. First, let's look at the clubs involved. There's a selling club who owns a player's contract, and the buying club who wants to sign the player. Next, we have the player themselves. Their release clause, market value, and willingness to move all play a big role. Alongside this is a player's contract, things like contract length, salary, image rights, and bonuses. Transfers also involve agents. They negotiate on behalf of the player and earn a commission or fee for their role. Now, let's talk about the money. The transfer fee is what the buying club pays the selling club. This can include installments, add-ons, or even bonuses depending on performance. On the legal and regulatory side, there are league rules such as financial fair play, squad limits, and registration rules. Then comes the contract paperwork, medical tests, negotiations, signatures, and final registration with the league. At the bottom, you can see the transfer process timeline, scouting and identification, negotiations, agreement, documentation, and finally the big announcement. And let's not forget the external factors, media pressure, fan expectations, and sometimes complications like third-party ownership, which is now banned. So, a transfer isn't just about buying and selling a player. It's a complex puzzle involving money, contracts, regulations, and people behind the scenes. Next, moving on to transfer payments and fee structures. When a football club buys a player, the transfer fee isn't always paid in one go. There are different payment structures that clubs use to spread out the cost and reduce risk. First, we have the base fee. This is a guaranteed amount, no matter what. For example, 80 million euros. Then come the performance-based add-ons. These are bonuses paid only if certain conditions are met. For example, 5 million euros if a player scores 20 goals in a season, or 3 million euros after making 50 appearances. It can also include things like assists or clean sheets. Next are team achievements. If the club wins a league, qualifies for the Champions League, or lifts a domestic cup, the selling club might get extra money. There are also player achievements. For example, if the player gets nominated for the Ballon d'Or, wins it, or makes the team of the year, that triggers more payments. Finally, there's a sell-on clause. This means if the buying club sells a player in the future, the original club gets a percentage of that fee, maybe 20% of the next sale. Now let's look at a real example. When João Felix moved from Benfica to Atletico Madrid for 126 million euros, the payment was split into installments. Atletico didn't pay all at once. Instead, they paid 30 million euros in the first installment, another 30 million euros in the second, another 30 million euros in the third, and finally 36 million euros in the fourth. So while headlines say Euro 126 million transfer, the reality is that payments are spread out, often with add-ons and clauses, making transfers much more complex than they first appear. Next, we move on to PSR rules. Football finance can be complicated, but let's make sense of it by looking at the Profit and Sustainability Rules, or PSR, and how they create global disparity. Left section, smaller clubs. In the Premier League, clubs like Aston Villa, Newcastle United, and Nottingham Forest face a real challenge. Because of PSR, teams are only allowed limited losses over a 3-year period. This creates strict budget constraints, making it much harder for smaller clubs to compete with the financial power of the giants. Middle section, revenue streams and global reach. So where does the gap come from? Football clubs make money from 3 main revenue streams: matchday income, broadcasting deals, and commercial activities. But here's the key. The bigger the club's global fan base, the more revenue they generate. And more revenue means a much larger transfer budget. That's why global brands like Real Madrid, Juventus, or Manchester United can keep spending at levels others simply can't. Right section, Chelsea case. Now, on the other side, we have Chelsea Football Club. They've been charged with more than 74 PSR breaches and fines, including cases involving illegal agent fees, like in the transfer of Eden Hazard. This shows how even elite clubs sometimes push the limits of financial rules, although the penalty is not decided yet whether point deduction or fine. So, while PSR is designed to keep football sustainable, it often makes life harder for smaller clubs and widens the gap between the richest and the rest. This is the end of the show. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more content like this.